And welcome everybody to this week's exciting episode.
Full moon, half moon, quarter moon, total eclipse. Do you remember that advert?
Yeah, Jaffa cakes.
Mm,
I don't remember the quarter moon bit.
maybe I added that bit.
Okay. That's one of your little additions.
Yeah. I like that advert. It's good.
Fair enough. And speaking of additions, we have an addition to today's show.
Oh, what you got?
We do. Well, a few weeks ago, some people know this, some people may not, but we were invited to another podcast. It doesn't happen very often. It's happened twice so far in 2 years. But yeah, Paratalk podcast. For those of you who haven't already listened to it, go and check it out. It's a very popular podcast, far more popular than ours, possibly a little bit more professional than ours.
Definitely more professional.
But yeah, we were invited on to speak with Reeves on Paratalk podcast. So we thought this week we would return the favour and invite Reeves over to our podcast. And here he is. Reeves, how you doing?
I'm all right. How are you? It's been a little while. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it has been a couple of weeks. By the time this goes out, it'll have been even longer because we do tend to do things about a month ahead. But yeah, it was very good coming onto your podcast, and we thought we got to return the favour. Didn't want to make you wait too much longer, so we thought we'd get you back. Did you have a good Halloween?
Yes, I did. I did. I don't know. It's kind of like they have like a big bonfire here, and then all the children go there and watch the fireworks. But it's not like, it's kind of not like, I mean, I told the story, Tom and I, Shadowed Hand, we did a Halloween ramble. Halloween now is kind of different that you're older. It's like it's like with Christmas and all that. It's all a bit different now. When I was a kid, you go to Halloween, right? And you get your little carrier bag, your little Lipton's bag or whatever. You put your makeup on, your mum's makeup, and rip some clothes or whatever. Go as a zombie, and you go around all the houses, and all the neighbours would go, "Oh yeah, hello, here's some cola cubes, and here's some Chewits or whatever," and then you would fill it up, your bag up. After about an hour, you come home, and your mum say, "You're not eating all that," and of course you would get out of a tantrum because you wanted to eat all your sweets. Yeah, but it was like a bit of an event. It's more of a sweet quest.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just used to have like a party. Everybody used to dress up, and then to get your sweets, you have to do things like dunking for apples and that sort of thing. Do you know? Did you ever have to do anything like that? My parents always used to make me earn my sweets.
No. Well, yes. No and yes, because I did go to parties. I went to parties when I was older, and they were in the guise of a Halloween party, and you would go, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to a Halloween party," and you would go to the party, and it would just be you in a room with all of your mates and no one else. So yeah, or you'd go around your mate's house and watch. The best thing for Halloween that I enjoyed was when I'm in my teenage years was we'd all get together, and I was quite fortunate because my mum and dad had a VHS video player. I know it sounds a bit bonkers, but having one of them back then, it was like top dollar. And a few of my other mates had video players. So we would kind of each Halloween or whatever, each event, whenever it was, we would go around each other's houses and we would go to the video store. We would hire, Evil Dead or whatever. And we would go back to our house and all, drink Pepsi Cola and eat whatever, crisps, and watch videos. And it was really weird because you're kind of like 16, 17 years old, and you're going into video shops, and you're picking up films like, I mean, I knew the lady in the video shop, and I think she was French, and she was really sort of flamboyant, and she was always very friendly and talkative, and I'm sure she thought I was a lot older than what I was. And this is amazing because when I was like 21, I still looked like 15. But it's like she would always go, "Oh yeah, you can have that one, and that's fine." But you look at the films back then, you're thinking, "Oh, like proper horror films." But you look at them now, and in comparison to what's being produced now, they're like comedies. You know, it's just like
Oh, yeah.
laughable. And a lot of the
Evil
horror films,
Dead, yeah.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, but no, I gotta say, right, if there's one film, right, if there's one film that scared me back then, in my early formative years, it was Evil Dead, the first one. And I went to, I said to my mum, I said, "Oh, I'm going to watch a film," and she's like, "Oh, I don't want you coming in the house. I want you back at 11 o'clock." Yeah, I'll be back at 11 o'clock. Of course, I wasn't back at 11 o'clock, and I missed the last bus, so I had to walk home. And my mate lived like 4 miles away, so I'm walking home, and I'm sort of thinking I had the Evil Dead going around and around that forest scene in my head,
Swallow your soul.
and I'm thinking, yeah, I'm walking faster and faster and faster and faster, and then I eventually got home, thinking, oh, I'm safe now, I'm safe. So I walked to go to put my key in the door. What the? Double lock the door. So I had to climb the side of the house to get in. And of course, I'm thinking I'm being cool because I'm really, really quiet and stealthy. My mum's waiting for me on the landing. She knows, you know. And it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, I got a bit told off for that, a little bit. And but it's all the fun of it. And it's kind of there isn't that. I don't think there is that anymore. I mean, you see people dressing up, but you don't.
There aren't even video stores anymore. I mean, that's
Oh,
quite
no.
a retro thing, isn't it? Nowadays?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
They call it
Well-
a Who, don't they?
Well, the thing is, with I love all that stuff. Yeah, I'm still stuck. A lot of people say I'm still stuck in the 1980s. You know, I'm a massive retro gamer. I love all that sort of stuff. You know, old films. I've got loads of old slasher films. I love all that stuff, and it's kind of like it's kind of capturing your sort of your formative years, the years that you grew up, the years that you were sort of most impressionable, and you learned all these new things. You got to remember that I was quite lucky to grow up in an era. I mean, you know, I'm Generation X, you know, so I'm kind of like growing up sort of in the 80s. Well, born in the 60s, but growing up in the 80s was amazing, and all these new things were happening. You know, I saw the birth of the mobile phone, the birth of the internet, the birth of video gaming. I witnessed it all,
Yeah.
and I was quite lucky to be around then. And of course, you bring that with you in a way when you get older. And it's kind of like now I'm like in my 50s. It's kind of like you look back at that stuff and you think, oh yeah, that was a bit. But you know, some of it was like some of it was great, and you know, it's and it's just nice to carry it on with you. And it's like anything with the video stores. Yeah, they're all gone. But people think, when younger people, a lot of your younger audience that are listening to this, they're like, what's he prattling on about? You know, if you want to watch a film, just go on Netflix and stream it.
Yeah,
But-
Oh, but there's
That's-
nothing like the feeling of going down
Go
to
in
that
there.
video shop when there's a new release and finding the cover. And if you can find that video that nobody else has rented out because it's brand new and you're lucky enough to get a copy, oh, that was a feeling, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know if you did this, but you knew a film was coming out, right? And you could ring up Blockbuster. I mean, we used to go to a lot of independents because with the independents, you could get them cheaper. But if you needed it, you knew if you went to Blockbuster, they'd have like 50 copies or 100 copies of a new film that was coming out. And you could ring them up. And for a little bit extra coin, you could reserve it. It was like an extra 75 pence, and you could reserve the film. And it was like my mates would go, yeah, you ring them up, because if you don't ring them up, you ain't gonna get it. And you'd ring them up, and once you reserve that film, you think yes. And of course, in school all day, you'd be bragging, yeah, we're gonna see that tonight. God, I reserved it, didn't I?
Yeah.
I reserved it. So it's like, you know, it's just it's that kind of thing. And going there with your mates and looking at all the films and looking at the covers and reading the covers, and then just thinking, yeah, this is a pretty good one. And your mates would come, no, this one, you got to watch this one. And you get home and it was a load of old nonsense. But yeah, it's just the whole. I mean, of course, then you had like Gary that used to come round every Thursday and Saturday in his Granada Gear estate with a bunch of hooky sort of you know,
yeah, the
screeners
pirate.
in the background in the back of the car going, yeah, everything's 10p, boys, everything's 10p. And I remember hiring a film once, right? I hired a film once. And it was just somebody that sneaked a VHS video recorder, and those things were massive back then, into the cinema. So you could see that he was sat sort of slightly off center.
Oh, yeah. And you get the silhouette of the person getting up.
You could, you could see people getting up and walking out. But the funniest thing was, because obviously the sound it works differently when you record stuff like that. He's using the onboard microphone and recording it. And as the film's playing into like 20 minutes in, everything's slowly going out of sync. So
Yeah.
you've got the action happening, then the sound happening, and it was like, oh god. And then it's like it's been recorded a million times, and it's like such bad quality. And I mean, most classic one for me was my mate at school going, "Do you want to come around my house tonight? My sister's got ET." And this is before ET was out in England, right? This is before it was out, and everybody was raving about it, and it was like you'd see it in like magazines and stuff. Because no internet, it's all magazines, it's all like Starburst and stuff like that, and your teenage magazines.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'll watch it. And I was like a young kid, and I remember going around their house, and the sister came in with this black VHS tape, put it in, and honestly, it was like you couldn't even make out the picture. It had been copied so many times. It was just such bad quality. But I sat there for like 2 hours and whatever it was watching it. And then when I got home, I absolutely got to hide him because once again, I was late and I was only like 11 and
Yeah.
I didn't come home till really late. And my mum was at the point of calling the police. So, yeah.
Well, I'd say you were lucky for having a Blockbusters in your town because
Yeah, I had one, yeah.
the town that I grew up in, Ludlow in South Shropshire, we only had a small independent video shop that you could go to rent out videos, and it was called Janus. You know, literally, like I think it was either the Greek or the Roman god of entertainment, Janus.
Oh, not short for Hugh Janus.
No, but yeah, the amount of times the letter J got taken off the front of that building.
Yeah, yeah, I would imagine.
Every week. Every week.
I was quite lucky. We had a Blockbuster, which was like a medium size. There's only one. I mean, I was watching a video the other day. There's like one Blockbuster left in America, and it's like as it was. It's still open. You can still go in there, and you can't rent those. Or you can just buy stuff. But it's just nice. It's a bit nostalgia. It'd be good if we had something like that over here, like something like that with a retro arcade built on as well. That'd be amazing. But they didn't,
yeah, Space
they
Invaders, yeah.
don't rent nothing. They could sell stuff. Maybe I should do that. Yeah, maybe I should do a GoFundMe and set up something like that.
Yeah,
Who
you
knows?
found your new niche.
But yeah, but no, joking aside. What was amazing is we had Blockbuster, but we also had the Independents. We had one just down the road from me, which was West Coast Video. It's so American sounding, West Coast Video. Yeah, it was next door to like a really small hairdressers, which basically stank of hairspray. So when you went in there, you were like always coughing. But it was like one room.
Yeah,
But the guy, right? So this guy that run this, right? He was 100% a film movie addict. If he wasn't in bed, he was in that video shop, and he just knew everything about every film that was out. You could ask him anything. He knew everything, and he was literally like pair of shorts and a t-shirt and his flip-flops, and that's all he wore year in year out. And that was his life behind that counter of that video shop. And it was one of the smallest independent video shops, but one of the most popular. That everybody used to go in there because he always had all of the real off-the-shelf stuff. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about stuff that you couldn't get anywhere else, or it was always out. He knew where to get it, and he knew what to get in, what was going to be good, and what was going to be popular. And we had a few more. We had other names in it. It's like we had West Coast Video. We had Whirlwind. What else did we have? We had another one as well, which was near me. But they started to branch out as well and start to do video games and stuff. Remember when you could go in a video shop and DVDs then, and you could go, yeah, I'll have this video, and I want that Xbox and those games for the weekend. Remember you could do that?
Yeah.
And you got to put down like 300 quid deposit. And it's like, yeah, in case you run off with it.
Yeah, and the amount of video games that I never got to complete because I was just renting them. And
Yeah,
you'd
I
get
used to do
so
that.
far and you get to a level that
That's
really
right.
frustrated you. And
That's
then
right.
you'd end up just taking it back and they go, oh, do you want to rent it again for another 2 nights? No. It's peed me off that much.
I did that. But that was great. I mean, people don't. It's all streaming now. Everything's online. Everything is online. You go to your computer, you can stream it, which is great. Don't get me wrong, it's great. But there's something about going somewhere and interacting with people and looking at stuff and making a decision and have that kind of cognitive sort of ability to sort of think about something and go, is this going to be good? Is it going to be shit? whatever, and you pay a bit of money, and you maybe get some popcorn and see your mates and go around your mate's house and watch it. We haven't got that. That's gone. That's gone now. That I don't think that will ever come. Well, maybe it will come back in people like myself who want to just continually relive the decade of 1980 and go around mates' houses and stuff. But and still buy like physical media. I mean, I'm getting more and more back into physical media. I mean, I still got albums. I still play records. I still buy DVDs. And it's like I even got VHSs, and I've still got a VHS player. I'm so stuck in the past. It's just unbelievable. But it's because I'm always worried that one day the internet will go off, and it will all go away, won't it?
Yeah, that is. I mean, kids these days don't even buy CDs of their favorite music. It's all on Spotify or all on Amazon Prime or whatever it is. Whatever medium they're using these days, it's all there. And having physical copies of things is just—it's not even a thing anymore, is it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the downsides of having physical media is you got to have somewhere to put it, and I don't live in a mansion. And it's like, maybe one day.
And have a medium to play it. I wouldn't imagine that there's... I mean, I remember for Christmas one year when I was about 12, 13 years old, like, I wanted a CD player and begged and begged and begged my mum and dad for Christmas, I want this CD player, please. Months and months and months I was asking them. And I managed to get a Sony Discman. That was all that they'd fork out for, was a Sony Discman that I could plug in through phono leads into my hi-fi, and then I could actually play CDs. How many, say young people these days, people of the age of 20 and younger, will even have a CD player?
No, very few. It's all, as you say, it's all streaming.
It's just on your phone.
It's all on your phone. You pretty much. I mean, look at the podcast. Look at my. I mean, I look at my analytics, and what is it? 86%. I think it's 86% of my listeners listen on their personal device.
Oh, like mobile phone,
tablet. So very few people listen. One person listened on their watch. I don't know. That's even amazing.
We get about 6 people listen on Alexa. Oh, sorry, I've done it again, haven't I? I keep saying that. Yeah.
Well, there's people to be swearing now.
Yeah.
I've got my headphones on, so mine won't go off.
That's all right.
Nice.
Okay.
But it's great having technology around you and all that. But sometimes it's just nice to go old school and just listen to a record or whatever, and relive your sort of early years. It's just nice. I mean, I don't I'm not gonna say I want to go back to 1980s, 2000s. It was good times and it was bad times, but it's just nice.
Good times if you can remember them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, if you can remember them.
Anyway, let's move on onto the topic of today, because we have rambled on a little bit there. And I remember when you invited us onto your podcast, you gave us a list of talking pieces, conversation pieces that we could cover.
Yes.
Most of it was around ghosts and the afterlife and stuff like that. And you had one at the bottom of the list, an absolute random entry called Ants from Space.
Oh yes. Yeah.
I really want to know about these ants from space, because I've not heard of space ants. I've heard of some kind of insectoid alien beings. Never heard of them described as ants. I have heard of the ants that were taken up to the ISS for scientific experiments, and they apparently hated being on the ISS, the ants that they took up there. They couldn't get their head around zero gravity. But I want you to tell us all about these space ants.
I liked then how Reeves was like, oh yeah, as in, have you not heard of the ants?
Have you not heard?
Have you not heard of the ants in space?
Where have you been all your life?
Well, it's more of a play on words. I'm if you think of an ant, okay, I'm not on about an ant in a spacesuit or anything like that. It's more of an insectoid kind of scenario where we don't sort of we don't tend to sort of take much notice of the UFO field when it's something completely off the wall. Most people go, "Oh, it's a load of rubbish." Yeah, you're talking rubbish,
All right, so are you more people will be fairly accepting of like an alien grey or a humanoid style
Well, it's
alien.
in pop culture.
But
It's in
then
pop culture.
Yeah.
something that's like you say, completely alien to us, like an insectile intelligent being, they won't accept it.
Well, okay, so let's go back to not where it all began, because if you could say where did it all begin, well, people were writing about it in the Bible, weird stuff going on. But if you go back to in modern times where the UFO kind of thing kicked off, that would be 47, 1950s, where we had Roswell and stuff like that. That was kind of in the news, and people started talking about aliens and stuff. Now, here's the thing, right? If you think of, now I'm not saying this is fact, it's just something an observation. If you think about the way that people thought back then, right, and how they thought about stuff, and they say, "Yo, we've recovered these alien bodies, right? We've recovered these bodies, and blah blah blah. They're deceased or whatever, or we've got one captured or whatever." But we've also looked at other people that have had abduction or encounters with the UFO people or beings or whatever you want to call them. If you go like the 50s and you look what was kind of prevalent in the 50s, if you look at B movies and look at the sort of science fiction stuff, you had a lot of bug-eyed, big-headed alien little beings or whatever from space.
The original like War of the Worlds and that, like.
Well, yeah, kind of. But you look at what people were experiencing and they go, "Oh yeah, he had a big eye, big ears, or whatever," and it was more like a character from a B film, a B movie film.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If you move on a little bit, right, and go on to like the 60s, we can move on to like the 60s, and then people start having these experiences, and they say, "Oh yeah, it was like a man in a tin suit, and he was like spacesuit, and he abducted me and whatever, told me a message, and I have to tell the world or whatever." And then you move on a little bit to like the 70s, and you think of pop culture, and then people start talking about robots and metallic beings or mechanical beings or mechanical aliens. And then, of course, now we are moving on a little bit more, and people start talking about greys. And of course, one of the most famous book covers is Whitley Strieber's Communion book cover, where the kind of the face of the grey was first kind of put into what I would call public consciousness, where people were seeing it, from his book.
Yeah, that's a classic image.
Yeah, it is classic. Yeah, and it's kind of like everyone's talking about greys, but also if you skip back a little bit, you got to kind of look at the way that our pop culture has kind of evolved over the years, and then you look at what people are experiencing, and is there a connection there with what people are experiencing and what is in our public, consciousness, and what people are sort of consuming on TV and on the media, and maybe we can get into some sort of projection or whatever in a little bit. But I just wanted to move on a little bit to this kind of whole. People don't talk very much about this, and which is what I'm kind of surprised, because it's always very like greys and stuff. But there's a lot of people out there that have had these experiences, and this is going back to like the 60s. They've had these experiences with what I would call these insectoid aliens, the praying mantis type, where they've always been quite tall.
Those I have heard of. Yeah.
I mean, so Betty Anderson abduction, 1967. Okay, her experience, right? She described small grey beings, but that were that they abducted her and they were sort of communicating with her via telepathy. But she also speaks of these tall insectoid beings, which seem to be in charge in some way. They were consciously directing what was going on, and little grey man, do this, do that. Not saying it, but just there in the background. Ominous at presence. They could feel that they were in charge. And David Huggins, 1961. He was somebody that had experiences on and on and on. He had more than one experience. He was an abductee and an artist, and he had these experiences with what he described as insect-like creatures, and he's among the ones that he experienced with these mantis-like figures that seemed to be very powerful, very in charge, and they were the ones like calling the shots and stuff, you know. And I'm thinking to myself, why would we, why would we be, you know, why would people be experiencing something that's not humanoid, but you know, two arms, two legs, a head. These things are just totally off the wall. I mean, if you think about it, right? People that have had ayahuasca experiences and have done, you know, that kind of stuff, they say that they've experienced these mantis-like creatures, these praying mantis-like creatures that come to them and give them nuggets of wisdom whilst they're having their trips. So I'm wondering, maybe there is some form of connection there where what we're experiencing is there, you know, maybe these aliens are able to transcend dimensions and transcend time so that when we're in our whatever it might be, our trip, they're able to sort of infiltrate and come and say hello. Look,
That is actually something that we covered on our podcast, an episode on DMT entities, and we came up with the theory that perhaps dimethyltryptamine is a method of, like you say, transcending that dimensional rift and communicating with extra dimensional beings. I completely agree. Maybe these insectoid beings, as you say, might be just the only way that we can perceive them in our reality, is that's how they present themselves to us, because their form in the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension or the nth dimension, whatever it is, might be something that is completely beyond our comprehension. But when as a shadow on the table is a two-dimensional representation of my three-dimensional hand, you know, the insectoid being is a three-dimensional representation of their whatever dimensional existence. Do you know what I mean?
yes, but it wouldn't be the eighth dimension because only Buckaroo Banzai is in the eighth dimension. So no, anyway, joking aside, but no, and most people are going, what is that? What is that, a joke? What is he on about? Buckaroo Banzai in the eighth dimension. Go watch it. It's an amazing film.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I was going to say was, yeah, these insectoid, they seem to be in charge. They seem to be calling the shots. People who encounter them seem to, you know, feel that they command respect. I'm thinking to myself, if, you know, people say, well, maybe aliens have been here. Maybe they've always been here. If you think about where would something like that evolve? Where would it evolve? If we go back billions of years, right? Was their ancestors, its insect ancestors, were they just like ants, right? Living in a little ant mound on another planet. And then something happened where one day one of them had a thought, an idea, and it thought, you know, I'm more than just carrying leaves. I'm going to do something different. And maybe it rebelled and, you know, they kind of evolved over a long, long period of time and learned how to build spaceships. I know it sounds wacky and bonkers.
No.
I don't think so.
No.
You know, we
Because
evolved.
There's two things.
We evolved.
There's two things
know?
that kind of back up your theory. There is the old expression of, like, if there was a nuclear war, the only thing that would survive is cockroaches and Twinkies. So there's got to be something.
Twinkies.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, because they're just pumped full of chemicals. But they do say cockroaches would survive a nuclear blast. So there's obviously something in, like, insect DNA that makes them more advanced in that respect.
And tardigrades. Tardigrades are invincible.
But there's also that, is it called the echidnas? No, not echidnas. You know those things that flap around America? They burrow under the ground.
Cicadas.
Cicadas.
Yeah.
And their whole life cycle is like 17 years at a time, just underground, hibernating. And then billions of them rise up, terrorize plants and produce and everything. And then they go back under the ground again, or they breed. And
The other thing, because we find it hard to even perceive of like an alien intelligence that isn't like us. And this is one theory that I don't know if I've brought it up on a podcast, but I stand by it, that I've said before, is that we have evolved from primates, yeah? And primates are typically an aggressively territorial species, and we're all worried that aliens will come and invade because we invade. We reflect our own characteristics on what we're expecting these aliens to do. Now, we can't assume that aliens have evolved from an aggressively territorial species. Or ants are an aggressively territorial species. Mantises, not necessarily so much. In fact, there's quite a lot of insects out there that aren't aggressively territorial. And would they have a concept of like war, or they wouldn't necessarily invade for no reason or anything like that, if they were going to come to the planet. And it's one of I used dolphins as an example last time. Dolphins are another intelligent species on this planet. All right, they're not capable of building spaceships or anything like that, or even houses yet. But if dolphins did get a little bit more intelligent, how different would that be to us? To them evolving into an intelligent a technological intelligent species, the same way that monkeys evolved into us. Do you know what I mean? The different ancestral lines can produce a completely different species in the now, if you know what I mean. And we don't know what these insectoid aliens have evolved from to have any idea of what their intentions are or what they would be like now. And like you say, if they've evolved to be multidimensional, maybe they don't even need to be technologically advanced, because it's just part of their actual natural life cycle to be able to transcend dimensions, in a way that we don't even understand.
Well, you mentioned, did you say it was written in the Bible? There's examples of these insectoid things in the Bible.
No, I don't know. What if you read the Bible? Well, some people say that the Bible is the biggest UFO book out there. And if you read some of the stuff, Wheels Within Wheels and angel encounters and stuff like that, are we looking at something that maybe they influenced our upbringing as a species, and also influenced our belief structure in some way? I know some people will just greatly disagree with that, but there are cases in the Bible where people have experienced things, and they've not been able to sort of explain it in a way that is rational. But then again, we have to look at it from the point of view where I do agree that you got to look at it also in the context of the language that they had back then to describe stuff. For example, if you saw something that you could not describe, that you've never seen before, and then you come back and you said, "Hey Reeves, I've seen this. It was a bit like that, but it wasn't. But it was a little bit." I'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Because I wouldn't understand. You would have nothing to draw from. You were just picking out stuff in your head that you think that would describe what you've experienced, but it might not be anything that you actually experienced. You can describe it completely different. And there's lots of cases in ancient scriptures as well. In Roman times, Romans have seen stuff. They've witnessed lights in the sky and things that they can't explain. Yet we could say, that could be comets or sort of any sort of explainable Earth phenomenon. The lightning phenomenon. All that sort of stuff. But there are stuff in there that you look at it and you think, yeah, you could explain it away, but is that actually is that actually what people have experienced? I mean, let's put it this way, right? I'm going to go a little bit off topic because I always do. One of the things that fascinate me is Sasquatch, and some people say, yeah, Sasquatch is alien, isn't he? Aliens control him. He's like, they tell him what to do, and he goes out and does it. I don't know. I don't know. A Sasquatch is, there are people that have experienced a big hairy man in the woods, and one minute he's there, and the next minute he's gone. People say, "Well, I didn't hear him walk off. He was just gone." Well, he's very clever because that's his back garden, and he knows how to move around it without he can see you without you seeing him. When we go in the woods, we're crap. We're just like clunking around and talking, and we're just, all the animals in the world. People go, "Oh, I feel like everything's watching me." Yeah, because it is. Because it is watching you. That's why. Because you're making so much noise. But anyway, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, you're a
right?
stranger in a strange land.
Yeah. I'm just wondering. With Sasquatch, right? And it's just an idea. Is there like a Sasquatch village somewhere? If you think about it, deep in the forest, maybe deep in like the Appalachian Mountains or something, where no human is able to go. Is there like a Sasquatch Bigfoot community where there's like like some shops, like Bigfoot shops where they sell combs and stuff. I don't know. And then they sell like food or whatever. Maybe they don't have money. Maybe they just sort of barter. Maybe
They get
I don't
smurfs
know.
to do their
Maybe
farming
there's
for
like
them.
a town hall or whatever. We don't know. And what I'm saying is, I know I'm taking the mick a bit, but the fact is that we don't know. That could actually be real. That could be out there. There could be like, a Sasquatch village somewhere where they all live and just hang out and have a job or whatever, and then they go out for a walk. And when we experience them, he's out for a stroll. He's just out for a stroll, and he's like, can't get away from these humans. They're coming deeper and deeper into the forest. I'll roar at them. That'll make them run away. And then we go back and say, "Oh, I had this encounter. He was quite aggressive. I got his footprint." And then everyone goes, "Oh, you're just a liar. You just made it up, didn't you? You made that with some wood, didn't you?" So yeah, it's a double-edged sword. When people do have these encounters, you've got some people that go, "Tell me more. I'm all ears," and yet I think the vast majority of people go, "Oh, you're a bit mental, aren't you?"
Yeah.
I found that anyway.
No, I get what you're
When
saying.
you tell a story, I mean,
We recently covered Bigfoot, and I think our big take from it was we believe that Bigfoot. I mean, this is off topic for this episode, but we believe that Bigfoot definitely did exist at one point. Whether he's still around these days, possibly extinct. That was kind of our synopsis of it, really, with alien beings and that sort of thing. You're in the similar sort of ballpark. Is that, like you say, so many people have reported insectile beings. So many people, like the name Anunnaki keeps coming up again and again and again. The alien greys and stuff. And if there's so many people reporting the same thing over and over and again, surely there's got to be something to it, isn't there?
there is. It definitely is. The whole UFO phenomenon, there's something to it, and I know there's something. Well, I'm saying I know for definite, but I feel there's something to it. I don't want people to take what I'm saying out of context because I always talk from, I'm one of those people that sit on the fence because I'm not going to say if I'm going to go out there and go, yeah, that's true. That actually happened. There, and I can give 100% out to the bank, and then I'm full of because I got no proof.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I can say I believe it might have happened. For example, I had an experience. There we go. Nicely onto my personal experience. I had an experience when I was a teenager, 1981, something like that. Lived in a house, and my mates, like a lot of guys back then, you'd have your mate, you'd hang around with your mate, and you go, "Do you want to stay over? Stay for tea?" And you would go, "Ma, can we make Gary stay over?" And you'd do a sleepover. And of course, you're young guys, you're like, "I've got some cigarettes. I'm going to have a fag out the window. Have a smoke out the window." So I opened my window. We live in our house backed onto like a huge cricket field. So it was completely pitch black. And then in front of that, there was like the coast, the seaside and stuff. So it was quite a nice view, put it that way. And I opened the windows and we're like hanging out the window. We're going to have a sneaky smoke. And then my mate says, "What's that?" And of course we look up in the sky and there's this really bright light. And I go, "Oh, it's just a plane." And we weren't in a flight path. We didn't regularly have planes going over. And it's really weird to have planes flying around unless it's a police helicopter, at 9 o'clock at night. And it's kind of like, and we're watching it and it's kind of not going anywhere. It's just there. and it's much brighter than all the other stars around. It's like much brighter. And then another one comes, and it stops above it, and we're thinking, okay. So I'm calling down for my dad because my dad's a member of the British UFO Society, and he does like reports and stuff. And he comes upstairs. He's going, "What's all this blood?" And he comes into bed and goes, "Oh, what's this?" Goes off, gets his binoculars, comes back. He's looking at it through his binoculars, and whilst he's doing this, another one comes, and we got 3 points of light making a triangle in the sky, and they're all brighter. They're not changing colour. They're all white, and they're just slightly shimmering in the night sky. And we're all watching it. My dad's looking through his like binoculars, and he's saying, "Oh, they look like Mexican hats. That's what they look like." And we're like, "Oh, give us a look, Dad." And we're trying to look through one of the binoculars, but obviously they're tuned to his eyesight. So to us, it's just blurred. And then this lasted for about, I don't know, about 10 minutes. And then the one at the bottom slowly goes back off over the coast, just quite slow. The other one that was on the other side of the bottom goes back off this way, out of sight. And then the one that was at the top just shot straight up in the sky, gone. And that was it. And of course, my dad was straight downstairs. He was on the phone, ringing whoever up. He was writing out a report. But it was like, and I had that experience. It was like, I don't know what that was. I even to this day, it feels like it happened yesterday. And I don't know what I experienced. I mean, you're not going to say, this is 1981. So you have to be in context. It wasn't drones or anything. So I don't know. It wasn't a Chinese lantern. Chinese lanterns don't zip up into the sky, literally gone. So I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it was definitely something weird. And of course, after that, there was something else after that, which I'm not saying is anything to do with alien abductions or anything like that. I'm not going to say that one bit. I want to be clear there. But I did have an experience where I started to have these. Have you ever experienced when you were younger, when you would wake up and have like a night terror?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Josh had loads of them, even as an adult.
Yeah.
I had one about 5 years ago as an adult, and I kind of knew what it was. But when I was a kid, I didn't know what it was. And I would wake up and feel that there was something in my room, and I could sort of just out of my vision, and I would look in and I couldn't see it, but I knew something was possibly there. And it was very terrifying. And it got to the point where I started sleepwalking, and I would wake up. I remember waking up. I remember going to sleep, and I would hear a clock ticking, and the clock would get louder and louder and louder and louder. I had this electric clock in my room, but it wasn't very loud, and it would get louder and louder and louder. And I would have like a dream that I was walking around my room with all these colours in front of me, and it was the most bizarre thing. And it was like I'd be like asleep but awake. I suppose it's like what being hypnotized might be like. I've never been hypnotized, but it's something like that. And my mum used to find me all around the house, and like sleepwalking. And she was so worried that she took me to the doctor to get checked out because she thought, something's going on here. Because she was worried that I would go. Because I think it's amazing that when you sleepwalk, that you don't fall down the stairs or break your neck or whatever. You know where you're going, and yet you're not physically. You haven't got your eyes open. Yet all of that house is mapped in your brain, and you know exactly where you're going. It's just a weird. That's amazing in itself.
Yeah,
but
Yeah.
But my mum would have to come out and call my name and call me back into bed, and then I would get back into bed and go back to sleep. And I'd have no memory apart from hearing clocks ticking and maybe dreaming of like rainbows, and that was it. I didn't have any memory of being downstairs or standing in the kitchen putting cups in the cupboard or whatever. But she was worried that I was going to open the front door and go wandering off down the road in my pajamas and walk out in front of her on the main road and just, gone. So she took me to the doctors, and the doctor checked me out and said, "Oh, he's normal. He's just normal. He's just a young kid. Maybe it's hormonal. Maybe it's just have to go with it." And then maybe a few months later, it kind of stopped. It didn't happen again. So maybe it was me growing up, becoming a man. But or maybe it wasn't. Maybe I was. Maybe what aliens were going. Come here. It's all wind your mum up. Come here. Go in the toilet and just talk to the toilet.
Yeah.
Maybe they were doing that. I don't know. But yeah. So I did have that experience, and I to this day I don't know what it was. I'm not going to say. I'm not going to go and say, yeah, it was aliens. It was a UFO. I'm not saying that, but it was weird. That's what I'm going to say. It was weird, and I haven't got an answer for it. My dad reckons when he knows what he saw, he's not going to lie. He said it was like discs of light with like Mexican hats, basically, and that's the kind of that's a classic UFO thing. But I didn't see them, so I don't know. But who knows? But I definitely think the UFO phenomenon is a real phenomenon, and all those people that have had experiences, they ain't making that up. They're experiencing something, but what are they experiencing? That's the question.
Yeah, it's very true. It opens up so many possibilities because you can talk about, is it other planets? Is it interdimension? Everyone's got a different experience. Some are similar, but ultimately every experience is for that person, isn't it? So
very similar. Yeah, they do follow the abduction phenomenon does follow a kind of a very sort of similar path, but there are lots of people out there that have different, outcomes and have different, some are positive, some are negative, some are just not. It's just something that happened. But it's a bit like the poltergeist phenomenon, where it starts out a similar way, and then it kind of follows a similar path. They have a slightly different, in middle part, and then it fades away. Yeah. There are people now that maybe you've had one experience, and then don't have anything else to their knowledge. So there's people out there that remember fully what they've experienced, and there are people out there that have had to undergo hypnotic regression, which is a bit hit and miss because, I don't know, some way your mind might kind of affect it. But I'm not saying, once again, I'm on the fence with that. I'm not going to say it's not real because I'm not a hypnotist, so I can't say for 100%. But I think when you start introducing stuff into it like that, you have to be very, very, very particular about what you're taking for real because your mind is so amazing at making stuff up.
Yeah. Well,
we always close the episode off by putting our theories to the paranormality scale, which is something that's a little bit individual to us. We have you probably know I know that you've checked out our podcast before.
Yes.
We have the 1 to 9.9 rating because no one gets a 10.
Of course.
There's always room for improvement. That's what I say.
Is.
And we have even gone into the negatives when it came to flat Earth and Scientology and stuff. But generally it's between 0 and 9.9. So, Josh, what are you giving insectoid aliens?
I'm going to be honest and say I wasn't that aware of like insectoid beings and things. But it makes sense with some of the... I know some of it's cartoons, like Futurama and stuff like that.
Yeah. Zoidberg.
I'm also thinking, like, the Geonosians from Star Wars. I'm kind of getting this image in my mind of, like, these insectoid kind of things. And I don't think it's too far-fetched. I really don't. Especially when insects, in some ways, are more advanced than us. Like, there's been times where, I've swatted a fly or something, and then it's flown off. And I think, how have you just survived the impact of what would be like 300 trucks? But it's just off it goes and it flies. So maybe there's something there with insects. I'm going to give it an 8.6.
8.6?
Yeah, because I feel like it's a new thing for me. So I've got to explore that a bit more and do a bit more research on insectoids and get a stronger opinion, if you know what I mean. 8.6 is pretty high.
Fair enough. Yeah, it is. That is quite high for someone who's only just heard about it as well. That's a good score. I am going to go a little bit higher. I'm giving it a 9.1.
Had you heard the theory before?
Yeah. Particularly when Reeves said about the praying mantis style. I've seen some drawings from abductee witnesses and stuff like that who've drawn pictures of what they considered insectoid, mantis style beings. Like I say, I was intrigued because he pitched it to me as ants. But I think insect aliens in general I have definitely heard of. And like Reeves said earlier, they do seem to be that sort of governing body, if you know what I mean. In the alien world, like they're in charge, and then the Greys and the drone aliens, the minions, are what we generally perceive as aliens. The people who have alien sightings on Earth, the little bug-eyed grey alien poking its eyes out from behind a bush or whatever, is usually just like they're worker bees, if you know what I mean.
Can I ask a quick question before Reeves gives his score? Where do the reptilians fit into this? Are they part of the same hierarchy, or is that something completely different?
The reptilians are, think of it as factions. They're a completely different faction. They have their own kind of law, their own UFO law, and there's many stories of people encountering these kind of lizard beings, and there's also stories out there where individuals have seen these underground bases where these kind of reptilians have their their HQ. But the thing with the reptilians is they don't like humans, and they see us as inferior. And one of the things is that if you ever encounter one or introduced to one, you never look them in the eye. You always look them on the floor. So yeah, it's kind of like they see us as very inferior. But there's many different factions within the grouping of the reptilian law.
Also, just to go back to what you were saying earlier about the biblical context, seraphim is a word that comes up in the Bible quite a lot. Basically means serpent person.
Okay.
So it is a massive rabbit hole. I mean, if you go into that area, I mean, we see that the insect, whatever you want to call them, beings, they've been experienced from the 60s, the 80s, the 70s, the 90s, and even now people have these experiences with them. What they are, why they're manifesting in that way. Maybe they're not even that. Maybe they're something completely like Pirate said earlier. Maybe they're manifesting in that way for us to interpret it. Maybe we can only interpret stuff in the context of what we understand as an individual. That's why we're seeing greys, because they're in the public consciousness. It's pop culture. Maybe when Whitley Strieber had that artist create that book, that's so many people saw that, and it was used so much that's what they said. Well, that's what they think we are, so that's how we're going to present themselves to us. But it's like,
that's a good point.
Why are we? Why would they? Why would they be insects? But maybe that's because that's what they are. Maybe to them, we are, the weird ones. Maybe we're the odd-looking ones. We might not mean anything. I mean, I have to kind of understand where it's kind of like you have to put it into maybe let's just say it's all true. I mean, we're talking about Louis Elizondo earlier about the whole chandelier thing and the mothership. We were talking about that.
Oh, that was before we started the recording, but yeah.
Yeah. We were talking about that, but it's like, if you think about it, right? I know that whole story is a hot potato and it's all gone a bit pear shaped, but there you go. Yeah. But if they're coming here on these great big ships and they're landing them somewhere, or maybe they're just hiding them somewhere, okay? Maybe they're under the ocean. That's why a lot of people thinking now that
that's where the claims are being made. Yeah,
they're all under the ocean. If they can travel through space, then they can go under the ocean and happily stay under there. But maybe they are something completely different, and when they come out and do their stuff, they have to present themselves in a way where we have to interpret them. That's why, if you think back to I think it was the 70s, there were a lot of, like the Friendship case, where a group of people met these alleged aliens from a different planet, but they were humanoid. They looked just like you and I. They just had slightly different accent, but they were on a mission. They were here, sent to Earth to do stuff, to give a message, and then they stayed here for a while, a few years, and then they left. And it's like, well, that's a bit weird. Why would you? Yes, we've come here. We've tried communicating with them, but it's no good. Just we're gonna piss off now. We've had enough.
Yeah.
It's just weird. But you can't take all these stories and go, they're all a lot of junk. There's definitely something to it. And as I say, to give my score, I'm going to give a 9.5. Okay, because I do think that
that's up there.
Yeah, because I do think that the insectoid, along with the reptilian and the greys, is just as relevant in the UFO bubble. I think that people are seeing something, and they're seeing that as well. There's too many cases out there. There's too many people that have experienced stuff for it all to be a lot of old chuff. There's definitely something going on.
I love that expression, load of old chuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, old school. Yeah. I like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite cool. Well, thank you, Reeves. Thank you for...
You're welcome.
Return. Well, we were returning the favour because you literally invited us to your podcast out of the blue. We got invited quite early on when we first started doing our podcast, and I think we must have made such a hash of it that nobody ever invited us again until you did just a few weeks ago. And so we thought we'd return the favour. And in fairness, to anybody that is a fan of our podcast, Reeves' podcast is not so different. Paratalk podcast, he covers the same wide range of subjects that we cover, and he gets in guests these days to help him have conversations about it. You do some classic episodes as well, though, don't you,
yes,
Reeves?
I've just published one today. What I'm doing at the moment is every few episodes, I'm uploading a classic episode that me and Gareth did. So give people a little bit of a taste of what I would call Paratalk version 1.0. When Gareth and I was doing it.
Where you came from, yeah.
Yeah, where it started from, because obviously if people don't know, Gareth and I started it, Gareth Davis, and sadly he passed away a few years ago. But I wanted to sort of rekindle some of the old school Paratalks because we had a lot of, cool episodes, and we had some really good conversations. And so I thought, well, what a good way is to sort of every few episodes is to put up a classic episode where people can sort of step back in time a little bit. And I kind of, at the moment, it's kind of like Tom, if people are like horror, then obviously you want to go and check out Shrouded Hands channel on YouTube. But Tom comes in and we have some good conversations, and he's kind of like stepped in now as a bit of a co-host with me, and he comes in on every sort of couple of times a month. He'll pop up and we'll do an episode together, and it's kind of like it's nice to have someone
regular.
Semi-regular to have a conversation with, because it's like I love going off on tangents. You never know where I have a script and I have an idea. So I also do solo episodes where I'll just sit down and it's just me mumbling into a microphone with a script, talking about a particular topic. And I also want to branch out a little bit, maybe little bit later this year, maybe in the new year. And I want to branch out a little bit into more video production, going and visiting some places and documenting them and telling the story of them.
Fair play.
But also, I ride a motorcycle, and the thing is, it's like I'm getting to the age now where riding a bike every day is like it's a bit much on the back, So I'm gonna get myself a car in the new year, so I can, with a car, it doesn't matter if it's raining, you can just get in it and just zoom off somewhere, and it doesn't matter, with a bike you've got to put all your wets on and go.
It's a faff.
So I've decided that I'm going to branch out a little bit and invest a little bit of money, get one of these little DJI cameras and just go and sort of document places and try and cultivate that for the YouTube audience and also the audience that want to see a few weird haunted places and tell the story of them.
That's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah.
The classic episodes were what attracted me to respond to your email. In fairness, like when you emailed us, I checked out one of your episodes and it was a classic episode. I think it was Phantom Hitchhikers.
Phantom Hitchhikers. Yeah.
And the one bit I was listening to it while I was at work. I was going around. I'm not going to tell you what I was doing. It was. But I was on my own for half an hour, and I was just going around. I'd got a shovel in my hands, and I was doing some hard work. I was listening to your Phantom Hitchhiker episodes, and you were telling the story about a Phantom Hitchhiker that had appeared to a woman, I think, in the car, and she'd gone to the police station, and Gareth, I think it was, had asked you, what happened then? And you were like, well, she was breathalyzed, and I just belly laughed. That was I just literally just belly laughed to myself, and I was like, this guy's got I'd quite happily go on this guy's podcast because he's got a similar sense of humour to us. And
You got to have a laugh. You got to take the mix sometimes. You got to have a laugh. I mean, there's no point being overly serious about everything. I mean, you can look at stuff and you can see the funny side of stuff. And I do like to have a joke, and that's why I do miss that in a way, because Gareth and I were very similar. We've been a little bit of dark humour, but it was like, it's fun, and it's good to have a bit of a joke and a laugh at stuff. And I think that, I've just uploaded today. I published a new episode, the Devil's Footprints. You're obviously familiar with that.
Oh, the footprints in the snow.
Yeah, for
I know
100
the one.
miles,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
bonkers. But episodes like that, I just really enjoy doing. But I also enjoy just rambling about stuff and giving ideas and coming up with concepts. And I thought, well, having somebody else now and again, and Tom's very sort of knowledgeable about the paranormal and the supernatural, even though he's more of a kind of like, he's got more of a horror channel. He does read a lot about the paranormal, and he's had a few odd experiences. So it's kind of like it's kind of a good mix. But there you go. I'm going to waffle, so I'm going to shut up.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Reeves, for coming on and gracing our podcast with your presence. I know you've been doing it for a lot more years than we have, and you've got a bigger following than us. So thank you for
thank you very
coming
much.
on to ours. All right.
You're welcome.
And until next week, I've been Pirate.
I'm Josh.
And this has been Paranormality. Don't forget to check out Paratalk podcast if you haven't already. And until next time, ta-ta.
Ta-ta.
Bye-bye.